Picking up from the last chapter, Lin Dong receives the inheritance from the Azure Dragon Hall, and his brother Little Mink is also undergoing a transformation in the Pill River, on the verge of obtaining a true physical form. A massive cocoon of black and white light hovered quietly in the midst of the surging Pill River, with rings of life and death floating around it, evolving into various strange and wondrous scenes. From within those pulsating rings, waves of thick, blood-like energy silently seeped out, carrying with them a faint yet unmistakable aura of ferocity. It was as if some terrifying beast was about to be born within the cocoon. Standing at the edge of the Pill River, Lin Dong gazed at the cocoon with a nervous expression, watching as its radiant glow fluctuated unpredictably. Despite his confidence in Little Mink, he couldn't help but worry. Forming a physical body was no ordinary feat even for those who had reached the ninefold nirvana. Such an accomplishment was beyond reach, making the risks involved all the more daunting. Lin Dong had known Little Mink for many years, and his journey to this point was inextricably linked to their bond. Their relationship was undeniably deep, and if anything went wrong with Little Mink now, it would deal Lin Dong a heavy blow. You can't mess up now, Lin Dong muttered to himself, his hand clenched tightly. Boom. As if in response to his murmuring, the cocoon that had remained silent for 4 months suddenly shuddered violently. A wave of wild energy burst forth, stirring the Pill River into a frenzy of waves. Huh. Startled by the sudden commotion, Lin Dong's eyes snapped towards the cocoon. He saw dark, purple-black hues beginning to surface on its exterior. With the appearance of the purple-black glow, a fierce suction force erupted from the cocoon. The once calm Pill River was thrown into chaos, as beams of nirvana energy surged out, like 1,000 dragons, converging towards the cocoon. Hiss, hiss. As the vast streams of nirvana energy made contact with the cocoon, they were silently absorbed, vanishing without a trace. The Pill River churned violently as torrents of nirvana energy flooded into the cocoon, which greedily devoured them like a bottomless pit, showing no signs of stopping despite the immense amount being absorbed. Lin Dong watched in amazement as the Pill River was thrown into complete disarray. He could feel the nirvana energy being consumed at an alarming rate. Such ravenous absorption. No wonder Little Mink had said that forming a physical body required an enormous amount of energy. If not for the Pill River, even if Lin Dong emptied his entire stockpile of nirvana pills, it would barely be enough to satisfy Little Mink's appetite. Splash. As more nirvana energy surged in, the purple-black glow of the cocoon grew darker and deeper. Under Lin Dong's watchful gaze, this near-insatiable absorption continued for an entire day. The voracious scene made Lin Dong's scalp tingle. The Heavenly Demon Mink's physical form was indeed terrifying, requiring such a monstrous amount of energy. Fortunately, the rampant devouring didn't last forever. Otherwise, even with the Pill River as a foundation, Little Mink would have drained it dry. Crack. By midday of the second day, a faint cracking sound finally reached Lin Dong's ears. It wasn't loud, but to Lin Dong, it was piercing. His body tensed as his gaze snapped towards the cocoon, now completely bathed in purple-black light. His pupils contracted, for he noticed fine cracks slowly spreading across the cocoon's surface. He knew Little Mink's seclusion was nearing its end. Cracks continued to form, and half an hour later, under Lin Dong's unblinking stare, they spread across the entire cocoon. Mysterious, deep purple-black light seeped through the fractures, while the ferocious aura grew even stronger. Crack, crack. When the cracks reached their limit, a fragment of the cocoon finally broke off. Boom. That small fragment falling was like the final pressure releasing from a volcano. In an instant, the massive cocoon exploded before Lin Dong's narrowing eyes, and boundless purple-black light shot up to the heavens, covering the entire sky in its eerie glow. Lin Dong lifted his head, his gaze locked onto the dense purple-black radiance above. In the midst of that light, a massive shadow slowly began to form. With a sudden whoosh, 2 enormous wings, over 100 feet wide, unfurled from within the glow. The purple-black bat wings flapped gently, unleashing a violent storm that swept across the surroundings. As the wings spread open, A pair of eyes, faintly glowing with a purple sheen, appeared within the light. Then, with a tilt of its head, it let out a sharp cry. Whoa! The piercing sound, almost tangible in its intensity, reverberated through the air, brimming with an uncontrollable sense of joy and excitement. Below, the Pill River surged violently, with waves soaring hundreds of feet high. The sound waves spread in all directions, and Lin Dong found himself caught within their path. With a wave of his sleeve, a circle of golden light emerged from his body, forming a protective shield around him. Bang! Bang! The sound waves collided with the golden barrier, causing fierce ripples to spread across its surface. However, the shield remained intact, not shattering under the impact. Lin Dong paid no attention to the ripples on the golden barrier. His eyes were fixed on the sky above, where the purple-black light was gradually fading, revealing an immense figure that appeared with overwhelming visual force. It was a colossal beast, at least 100 feet long, with its entire body radiating a purple-black glow. Its enormous bat wings stretched out behind it, as if capable of covering the sky itself. Its two thick, purple-black arms were etched with mysterious runes that shimmered faintly, exuding an aura of terrifying power. The beast's massive claws were especially fearsome, with razor-sharp tips gleaming coldly. Even Lin Dong couldn't help but feel a chill run through his body at the sight. He had no doubt that these claws possessed the deadly power to tear through his flesh with ease. Whoosh! The giant beast hovered in the sky, its enormous wings slowly flapping. An indescribable aura surged from its body, so intense that even the heavens seemed to pale in comparison. This was a true ancient fiend. The sheer power it radiated seemed to even surpass the azure dragon that Lin Dong had previously encountered. So this is the true form of the Heavenly Demon Mink, Lin Dong muttered softly, his eyes filled with awe as he stared at the beast that exerted such immense pressure on him. He had often heard Little Mink boast about its power and dominance, but Lin Dong had never taken it too seriously. Now, however, seeing the true form of the Heavenly Demon Mink with his own eyes, he had no choice but to believe that this race truly possessed the terrifying strength to challenge even the Dragon Clan. The Heavenly Demon Mink hovered in the sky, letting out a long, piercing cry. After a while, the earth-shaking sound finally began to subside. It then slowly lowered its head, and its mysterious, purple-black eyes locked onto Lin Dong. Lin Dong raised his head, meeting its gaze without a hint of retreat, despite the overwhelming pressure radiating from the beast. Boom! For a moment, their gazes remained locked, but then, a fierce light erupted from the Heavenly Demon Mink's eyes. Its wings flared, and it transformed into a shadowy blur, charging straight towards Lin Dong. Its massive claws, capable of easily piercing through the golden body of a threefold Nirvana expert, shot directly at him. This sudden turn of events left Lin Dong momentarily stunned. He didn't move, his eyes focused only on those familiar purple-black eyes. The golden shield around him dissipated on its own at that moment. In those eyes, Lin Dong could see emotions he recognized well. He didn't believe that Little Mink would truly attack him. Swish! Little Mink's speed was beyond description. In an instant, it crossed the space between them, casting a massive shadow over Lin Dong. The pressure it exerted was enough to make even the bravest tremble in fear. Boom! Little Mink's purple-black eyes locked onto Lin Dong, and the cold gleam in them intensified. In the next instant, its massive claw swung down. But just as it was about to make contact with Lin Dong, the claw suddenly twisted and struck at the empty space behind him instead. As the sharp wind from the strike ripped through the air, Little Mink's cold, commanding voice echoed across the space. "Get out here." The claw's swipe seemed to tear even the fabric of space itself. Lin Dong's expression changed dramatically, but not because of Little Mink's attack. It was the shout that came before. The realization that someone else had been hiding here all along. He had been meditating and training in this place for some time, but never once had he sensed the presence of another. Yet now, Little Mink's words revealed the truth. All this time, someone had been lurking in the shadows, watching them. This thought spread through Lin Dong's mind, sending a chilling sensation throughout his body. Brilliant golden light burst from within Lin Dong as he pushed off from the ground, his body shooting backward. In midair, he forcefully turned around. His gaze locked on the void where Little Mink had launched its attack. Little Mink's strike was ruthless, purple-black light gathering beneath its claws. The power was so overwhelming that even Lin Dong couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Heh, as expected of the Heavenly Demon Mink, always striking without mercy. Under Lin Dong's intense gaze, the void rippled strangely, and an aged voice echoed out with a chuckle. As the voice emerged, a withered hand extended from the void, gently waving. What seemed like a light breeze shockingly repelled Little Mink's ferocious attack. Little Mink's massive form retreated slightly, and a flicker of seriousness appeared in its purple-black eyes. It slowly descended from the sky, landing beside Lin Dong. Its enormous bat wings flapped gently, creating a whirlwind that shielded Lin Dong behind it. Who is it? Lin Dong glanced at Little Mink, who looked like a demonic entity, then asked softly. I don't know, but they're strong. Be careful. My body has just formed, and my strength hasn't fully recovered, Little Mink replied in a low, serious tone. Lin Dong furrowed his brows. He couldn't understand why, deep within the Azure Dragon Hall, a mysterious figure had suddenly appeared. Both Lin Dong and Little Mink fixed their gazes on the distorted space, remaining on high alert. Under their watch, the distortion in the space intensified. Finally, a thin, gaunt figure slowly emerged from within their line of sight. It was an old man dressed in simple, coarse robes. There was no trace of any intimidating energy from his body, and his unremarkable, weathered face made him look like an ordinary elderly man. Were it not for the strange way he had appeared, Lin Dong might have mistaken him for just that. The old man smiled kindly at the wary Lin Dong and Little Mink, but made no move to attack. Instead, his gaze wandered around, surveying the area. So this is the depths of the Azure Dragon Hall. It seems the remnant spirit left behind by that person has already dissipated. Otherwise, I doubt even I could have entered. Upon hearing the old man's muttered words, Lin Dong's brow furrowed. The remnant spirit he mentioned likely referred to Qingji. It seemed that Qingji's spirit had vanished, leaving this space unguarded and allowing this mysterious old man to slip in. Senior, Lin Dong cupped his hands respectfully toward the old man, his tone courteous. Although he didn't know the old man's origins, he could tell this was no simple figure. It would be best not to provoke such a person if it could be avoided. Don't worry. I'm merely curious about this place. Over the years, I've tried many times to enter but was always blocked, the old man said with a smile, as if sensing Lin Dong's apprehension. He appeared quite amicable. Lin Dong's expression remained calm, but his mind raced. The ancient battleground generally only opened during the 100 Dynasty War, yet this old man seemed capable of entering at will. His identity was clearly far from ordinary. Heh, how long have you been spying on us? Little Mink snickered coldly. I was merely intrigued by this young one, the old man replied, his gaze shifting to Lin Dong. To possess the devouring ancestral talisman, if you manage to grow, you'll likely become one of the most dazzling figures in this world. Lin Dong's expression darkened slightly. He was well aware of the significance of the devouring ancestral talisman. It was enough to spark the greed of many powerful individuals. If this mysterious old man had his eyes on it, things could get troublesome. Purple-black light gathered in Little Mink's eyes, and an overwhelming, ferocious aura began to rise from it, signaling that it was ready to attack at any moment. I have no desire to fight you. Though you are a Heavenly Demon Mink, your strength is currently less than 1/10 of your peak, given your recently formed body. You wouldn't be able to defeat me, the old man said with a faint smile, completely unfazed by the oppressive force emanating from Little Mink. Then let's see. Little Mink's eyes flashed with cold intent, ready to strike. However, Lin Dong quickly waved his hand to stop it. He knew the old man was telling the truth. Even if they joined forces now, they would not be able to overcome him. Since Senior has no ill intentions, it seems we were being overly cautious, Lin Dong said with a slight smile. He cupped his hands in a polite gesture, intending to take Little Mink and leave. Now that our seclusion is complete, we won't linger here any longer. Farewell." As Lin Dong turned to leave, the old man suddenly spoke in a calm tone. "Young one named Lin Dong, I find you quite interesting. So, out of kindness, I'll tell you something. If your Heavenly Demon Mink friend's identity is exposed, I believe you'll find yourself in serious trouble." Lin Dong's body froze mid-turn. He furrowed his brow and asked in a low voice, "What does Senior mean by that?" The Eastern Mystery Region and the Demon Realm are far from peaceful. The two sides have clashed numerous times, and many core members of the super sects in the Eastern Mystery Region have been slain by powerful figures from the Demon Realm. Among these blood debts, none are greater than those owed to the ferocious Heavenly Demon Mink clan. So, if your friend's identity as a Heavenly Demon Mink is revealed, not only will the super dynasties refuse to acknowledge you, but you might also attract a calamity. Lin Dong's expression changed slightly. At his current level, he had no knowledge of such high-level grudges. "Lord Mink hasn't killed any of your people," Little Mink said coldly. The old man chuckled softly. "The fact that you belong to the Heavenly Demon Mink clan is enough. Don't glare at me. I hold no grudge against your kind. If I did, I wouldn't be speaking so peacefully with you. I simply don't want you recklessly revealing your identity and bringing a disaster upon this young fellow by your side." Little Mink's eyes flickered with various emotions, but in the end, it let out a cold snort without further comment. Lin Dong pondered for a moment before bowing deeply to the old man and saying, "Thank you for the warning, Senior. I'll make sure my friend avoids exposing his Heavenly Demon Mink identity in the Eastern Mystery Region." Though Little Mink was a demon beast, it had many techniques. As long as it didn't reveal its true form like it had just done, most people wouldn't be able to tell that it was a Heavenly Demon Mink. Meeting here is fate. I'm just offering a casual reminder, but I have a feeling we'll meet again," the old man said with a knowing smile, his gaze lingering on Lin Dong. "I'm curious to see how far you can go in the 100 Dynasty War. This time, there are some particularly troublesome geniuses involved." "I'll do my best," Lin Dong replied softly. He came from a low-level dynasty, and competing with those who had been nurtured by super dynasties with abundant resources was naturally a challenge. The super dynasties have dominated the Nirvana Golden ranking for many years. I think it would be quite interesting if someone from a low-level dynasty could claim a spot on that list, the old man said with a playful smile. Nirvana Golden ranking? Lin Dong was slightly taken aback. The Nirvana Golden ranking sounded similar to the Nirvana ranking, but he could sense that the difference between the two must be immense. The old man smiled but didn't elaborate. His figure slowly began to fade, and after a few moments, he disappeared entirely from the space. Lin Dong stared blankly at the mysterious old man, who had not only been enigmatic in his actions, but also in his words. In the end, he could only shake his head helplessly. "That old fellow is probably from one of the super sects," Little Mink suddenly said, gazing at the spot where the old man had vanished. Lin Dong nodded slightly. Being able to enter and exit the ancient battleground at will could only mean that this old man was associated with the super sects that controlled this space. "Little Mink, change back to your human form. If you walk out like this, it'll cause a commotion," Lin Dong said, turning toward Little Mink. After the old man's warning, Lin Dong knew they had to be more cautious. If Little Mink's identity were to be exposed, the two of them would be in trouble. Those super sects with grudges against the Heavenly Demon Mink clan would certainly come after him. Little Mink hesitated, despite understanding Lin Dong's reasoning, which caught Lin Dong off guard. Still, he urged Little Mink to hurry. Unable to refuse under Lin Dong's insistence, Little Mink had no choice. Intense purple-black light surged from within, and its enormous form began to rapidly shrink. As the light surged, Little Mink's form finally shrank to human size. When the light dissipated, a figure appeared before Lin Dong, causing his expression to stiffen slightly. Standing before him was a young man dressed in purple-black robes, his appearance strikingly handsome, so much so that he could be called beautiful. The mischievous smile on his face added a touch of devilish charm, making him extremely captivating. Lin Dong imagined that some women might even feel an overwhelming attraction to him at first sight. Lin Dong, however, wasn't a woman, so there were no starry-eyed reactions. Still, he was momentarily stunned, unable to reconcile this dazzling appearance with the cunning and often mischievous personality he associated with Little Mink. Lord Mink! Lin Dong's mouth twitched slightly as he gazed at the awkward-looking young man in front of him. A sudden urge to kick him arose in his heart. "Haha, you seem quite shocked." Little Mink, now in human form, looked awkwardly at the dumbfounded Lin Dong and couldn't help but let out a dry laugh. The initial shock in Lin Dong's heart gradually faded after a moment, replaced by an amused glint in his eyes as he stared at Little Mink with a peculiar smile. "What's with that look, kid?" Even though Lord Mink is only in the prime of youth among the Heavenly Demon Mink clan, I've lived far longer than you. Calling me Lord Mink isn't beneath you, Little Mink said quickly upon noticing Lin Dong's strange smile. Lin Dong chuckled but didn't respond, leaving Little Mink with an urge to roll his eyes. He knew that now that his human form had been revealed, all the hard work he'd put into cultivating an image of being shrewd and wise in front of Lin Dong had been utterly shattered. "I knew it!" Lin Dong stretched lazily, grinning as he looked at the disgruntled Little Mink. Sometimes, from the way Little Mink spoke, he could tell that while Little Mink had vast experience, he didn't carry the weariness of someone who had endured many hardships over a long life. "Now that your physical body has been restored, what are your plans?" Lin Dong suddenly asked, changing the subject. "What else can I do? I'll stick with you for now. Even though I've regained my body, it will take a while to fully recover my peak strength," Little Mink said after thinking for a moment. He shot Lin Dong a glance and added, "Besides, you seem to attract trouble wherever you go. If I left, I'd probably have to come back in a few days to collect your corpse." Lin Dong wasn't bothered by Little Mink's teasing. Looking at the face before him, more striking than the prince of the great Yin dynasty, Mo Ling, he felt a wave of warmth in his heart. He knew that Little Mink wasn't leaving yet because he didn't feel comfortable letting Lin Dong venture through the Eastern Mystery region alone. Lin Dong pursed his lips and reached out to pat Little Mink on the shoulder gently. "Brother," he said softly. They had known each other for many years, both starting at their lowest points. Having walked this far together, their bond was undeniably deep. Little Mink quickly shrugged off Lin Dong's hand, turning his head to the side with a grumble. "Don't get all sentimental on me. It's nauseating." Lin Dong smiled and then said thoughtfully, "When we leave this place, and as long as we're still in the Eastern Mystery region, don't reveal your Heavenly Demon Mink identity unless absolutely necessary. With your abilities, even though your strength is currently only a tenth of what it once was, I'm sure you can hide your true form if needed. The Heavenly Demon Mink's strength depends greatly on its body. If I don't use it, my power will be significantly reduced," Little Mink replied with a frown. "That's still better than drawing the attention of those super sects that hold grudges against the Heavenly Demon Mink clan. Don't worry. You have me and Little Flame by your side. It won't be easy for anyone to push us to that point," Lin Dong reassured him. Upon hearing this, Little Mink could only nod helplessly. He understood that, given his current state, even if he fully recovered, he couldn't afford to act recklessly in the Eastern Mystery region. Many powerful figures roamed this vast land, and the super sects that had stood for centuries here, despite their conflicts with the demon realm, possessed unimaginable strength. Seeing Little Mink agree, Lin Dong finally felt satisfied. He had no interest in digging into the grievances between the Heavenly Demon Mink clan and the super sects of the Eastern Mystery region. All he cared about was that Little Mink was his brother. Nothing else mattered. "It seems I'll have to choose carefully when joining a super sect in the future. I'll need one that doesn't harbor a grudge against the Heavenly Demon Mink clan, or else trouble will follow," Lin Dong mused. He suddenly recalled the mysterious old man they had encountered earlier. That man seemed to belong to a super sect but bore no ill will toward the Heavenly Demon Mink clan. It would be useful to know which sect he came from, as it might serve as a good option. "Let's go." Shaking his head to clear his thoughts, Lin Dong dismissed the ideas swirling in his mind. They had already stayed in this space for quite some time, and by now, the ancient battleground outside was likely heating up as the True 100 Dynasty War approached. After nearly a year of seclusion and cultivation, the once hidden experts from all sides would soon reveal their talents and fangs, becoming the shining stars of the ancient battleground. Like sifting gold from sand, the true diamonds would emerge, standing tall and awe-inspiring through the trials ahead. The ancient key reappeared in Lin Dong's hand, emitting beams of light. The space before them began to ripple intensely, forming a spatial vortex that gradually took shape. As the vortex solidified, Lin Dong scanned the space around them one last time, his gaze lingering on the flowing Pill River. For Nirvana experts, this place was a rare treasure trove for cultivation. But, alas, he couldn't stay here forever. After a brief moment of reflection, Lin Dong didn't linger any longer. He stepped forward first, entering the slowly rotating spatial vortex, with Little Mink following closely behind. Whoosh! As the two stepped into the vortex, it spun rapidly and disappeared in a surge of intense spatial fluctuations. The space they left behind, sealed for a millennium, returned to its deep silence, waiting for the next destined one to arrive. However, it was clear that no one else would be as fortunate as Lin Dong, who had received Qingji's legacy. While Lin Dong and Little Mink were leaving the depths of the Azure Dragon Hall through the spatial vortex, in another part of the battlefield, a robust figure sitting amidst a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood slowly opened his eyes. Boom! The moment his eyes opened, a scarlet light surged out, and a violent, indescribable aura erupted from his body like a raging storm. Bloodthirsty, savage. This terrifying, savage aura was enough to make anyone with a weak mind tremble in fear. Under the gaze of those scarlet eyes, even a warrior's combat power would drop drastically. The giant figure seated cross-legged was none other than Little Flame. His body was covered in a crisscross of striking, glaring wounds. It was hard to imagine the fierce and brutal battles he had experienced in this space. As the violent aura spread, overwhelming blood energy gathered above Little Flame's head, faintly forming the shape of a massive, blood-red tiger. Roar! The blood-red tiger raised its head and let out a deafening roar, the sound waves spreading madly through the air. The tiger's roar was incredibly strange, as it seemed to agitate the blood in a person's body, making it boil and churn, as if one's blood was about to burst out of their veins. At this moment, Little Flame was a living embodiment of a savage beast born from slaughter. Little Flame looked up, his scarlet eyes coldly gazing at the blood-red tiger. Then, with a wide-open mouth, he unleashed a powerful suction force, directly swallowing the blood-red tiger into his body. As the blood-red tiger was devoured, the blood energy around Little Flame's body grew even denser. He slowly stood up, his scarlet eyes scanning the empty space. A flicker of joy flashed through his gaze as the red light in his eyes gradually receded. Has Big Brother come out of seclusion? Little Flame murmured with a smile, his demeanor a stark contrast to the ruthless killing machine he had been moments earlier. He clenched his hand, and the ancient key appeared in his palm. His cultivation in this place had reached its limit. The only reason he hadn't left yet was because he had been waiting for news from Lin Dong. Now that Lin Dong was emerging from seclusion, it was time for him to leave as well. Standing tall, Little Flame glanced at the battlefield filled with the scarlet remnants of his battles. He looked down at the wounds covering his body and grinned before stepping into the swirling spatial vortex. As Little Flame's figure vanished into the vortex, the savage aura that had filled the battlefield instantly diminished. It was as if the ferocity in Little Flame's body had overshadowed even the battlefield itself. Whoosh! Just as the spatial vortex disappeared, the space nearby twisted slightly, and a frail, elderly figure appeared. It was the mysterious old man who had previously met with Lin Dong. The old man's gaze lingered on the spot where Little Flame had vanished, his withered hand stroking his beard as a flicker of surprise flashed in his eyes. The White Tiger Hall is known for its vicious and bloodthirsty nature. Most who inherit its legacy end up as mindless killing machines. Yet this big guy has managed to perfectly control and suppress it. Truly remarkable, the old man murmured with a smile. It seems the friends around Lin Dong are no simple characters either. This 100 Dynasty War is going to be quite a show. I wonder how far they'll go. The geniuses from the Super Dynasties aren't easy to deal with. His words faded into the air as the old man waved his sleeve, his figure once again disappearing into the void. In the northwest region, the ancient hall was a city symbolic in nature, known for its constant bustle. Ever since the appearance of the ancient treasure, the city had become even more crowded, its popularity soaring to terrifying heights. Even months after the discovery, the city was still as lively as ever. The ancient treasure had been open for quite some time, and in the following days, more and more people entered it. Of course, many fortunate individuals emerged, thrilled with their treasures. Seeing others' enviable gains only fueled the ambitions of the remaining participants. With the 100 Dynasty War fast approaching, many powerful figures were desperate to improve their strength. As a result, the number of people entering the ancient treasure grew steadily over time, rather than diminishing. Similarly, the number of experts drawn to the ancient hall surged, as advanced dynasties swarmed in, crowding the hall until it was completely packed. With more people came more conflict, a timeless truth. As more and more people flooded into the ancient treasure, even with its vast reserves, it couldn't withstand such rampant plundering. Around 2 months later, most of the treasures and legacies had been claimed, leaving many latecomers empty-handed. But those who came here weren't the type to leave empty-handed. So, the problems began. If they couldn't find any treasures, they would simply resort to robbing others. In this place where strength ruled supreme, as long as you had enough power, no one would question your actions when it came to seizing treasures. This mindset quickly plunged the ancient hall into chaos. Almost overnight, those who returned from the ancient treasure laden with riches found themselves the targets of numerous bloodthirsty, envious gazes as soon as they emerged from the spatial vortex. Robbery and resistance erupted all over the city. There were small-scale scuffles as well as large-scale battles. In the end, everyone realized that obtaining a treasure was only half the battle. The real challenge was making it out of the ancient hall with it, safe from the covetous eyes surrounding them. Here, there was no order. Only strength and fists ruled. Of course, even in such chaos, power dynamics still emerged. After several shifts in dominance, the forces that once ruled the ancient hall had been swept away, like debris in a river. Walking through this vast and ancient city, one's gaze would inevitably be drawn to the grand golden palace at its center. It was the most prominent landmark in the city. Currently, the force occupying that palace was so powerful that it silenced anyone who dared speak of them. They weren't just any advanced dynasty. They were a super dynasty. These 4 simple words carried an immense weight, enough to make others tremble. In the Eastern Mystery region, dynasties were as numerous as the stars, but everyone knew that among those stars, a few stood at the pinnacle. These were the super dynasties. The strength of a super dynasty was beyond the comprehension of ordinary dynasties. In the Eastern Mystery region, if the super sects were considered kings, then the super dynasties were the rulers, the dominant forces. While their foundation might not rival that of a super sect, their strength was still formidable. Moreover, the geniuses produced by super dynasties not only possessed extraordinary talents, but also had access to resources and starting points far beyond the reach of ordinary people. From the moment they stepped into the ancient battleground, they were already at the top tier. In fact, their acceptance into a super sect was practically guaranteed. Thus, super dynasties were the most powerful entities in the ancient battleground. Wherever they appeared, no dynasty dared to provoke them, fully aware that the consequences of angering such powerhouses were far beyond their capacity to handle. Originally, no super dynasty had been present in the Northwest region. It was only after the discovery of the ancient treasure that the super dynasty forces arrived at the ancient hall. From their actions, it was clear they were here for a purpose. However, their behavior puzzled many. After forcefully seizing the Golden Palace, they didn't immediately begin looting treasures like others had expected. Instead, they remained quiet, as if waiting for something. Their stillness left people confused, but soon, word spread. The Super Dynasty's forces were indeed waiting for something in the ancient treasure, but they had set their sights much higher than ordinary treasures. What they were after was the legacy of the 4 grand profound sects hidden within the ancient treasure. According to the information coming out of the ancient treasure, the legacy of the 4 grand profound sects had already been claimed by 3 groups, Liu Bai, Yin Xin, and Lin Dong. The most surprising revelation was that Lin Dong, who seemed to have the weakest backing, had actually secured 2 of the Grand Profound Sect legacies all by himself. After this news spread, an even more shocking revelation followed. During the battle for the legacies, Lin Dong had single-handedly defeated Tianjin, Mushou, and Jiangshan, the 3 dominant forces of the Northwest region. This victory not only established his reputation, but also secured him the legacies of 2 Grand Profound Sects. When this information first surfaced, many dismissed it as mere rumor. However, when Tianjin and the others emerged from the ancient treasure, battered and dejected, the entire city fell silent for a brief moment. Many people secretly sucked in cold breaths, struggling to comprehend how someone from a lower-tier dynasty could accomplish something so terrifying. Regardless of the shockwaves Lin Dong's actions caused in the ancient hall and across the entire Northwest region, he remained out of sight, seemingly confirming that he was busy refining the profound sect legacies. Upon learning that the Super Dynasty had come to the ancient hall with their sights set on the treasure, many people couldn't help but take a certain delight in the situation. They were eager to see how Lin Dong, who had repeatedly created miracles, would fare against such a terrifying opponent. With these not-so-friendly expectations, about a month ago, a spatial disturbance appeared above the ancient hall. Under the watchful eyes of the entire city, Liu Bai, Yin Xin, and their forces emerged directly from the void. Their appearance immediately caught the attention of the Super Dynasty stationed in the Golden Palace. Before long, experts from the Super Dynasty appeared. However, to the disappointment of many onlookers, the anticipated grand battle did not take place. After a brief but tense standoff, both sides seemed to hold reservations, and in the end, they withdrew without conflict. Many people were surprised by this outcome. Only those well-informed understood that while the Super Dynasty was indeed powerful, Liu Bai and Yin Xin had significant backing as well. After weighing the situation, the Super Dynasty likely didn't want to provoke a conflict with them or the forces behind them over the legacies. Although some were disappointed by this result, their spirits soon lifted. They knew that while there hadn't been a fight this time, the next encounter would certainly not end so anticlimactically. Liu Bai and Yin Xin had strong backgrounds, but Lin Dong came from a genuine lower-tier dynasty. Behind him, there was no Super Dynasty to support him. As such, if he dared to show himself, it seemed inevitable that he would have to hand over the legacies. After all, the ones aiming for him this time belonged to a Super Dynasty. In the ancient battleground, the authority of a Super Dynasty was not something a person from a lower-tier dynasty could challenge. Despite the many miracles Lin Dong had created, the strength of a Super Dynasty was more than enough to erase any miracle. The Great Qin Dynasty. This was the Super Dynasty currently stationed in the ancient hall, a name that could instill fear and reverence even across the entire ancient battleground. The Great Qin Dynasty boasted the 3 kings and 4 generals, all prominent figures on the Nirvana ranking. Their strength had reached an astonishing level. Among those from the Great Qin Dynasty waiting for Lin Dong to appear were 2 of the 4 generals: Fire General, Zhu Tianhua; Mountain General, Mu Huang. These were legendary figures who had once shaken the ancient battleground. They were the true geniuses and jewels of the battlefield. With an inevitable clash drawing near, countless people in the ancient hall were filled with anticipation. They were eager to witness whether Lin Dong, the young man from a lower-tier dynasty, could continue his streak of miracles when faced with such a colossal force. Would the miracles come to an end, or would they shine even brighter? The answer was drawing near. As this thought crossed the minds of countless people in the ancient hall, they suddenly looked up, staring in surprise at the spatial vortex that had abruptly appeared in the sky. The vortex slowly took shape, and violent spatial fluctuations spread out in waves. Then, 2 familiar young figures emerged from the vortex, floating downward. As some keen eyes focused on the figure at the forefront, their pupils shrank in an instant. Following that, an excited, piercing voice rang out sharply. "Lin Dong has appeared."